Truly, what is lawful is evident, and what is unlawful is evident. And in between the two are matters which are doubtful, which many people do not know. He who guards against doubtful things keeps his religion and honor blameless. And he who indulges in doubtful things indulges, in fact, in unlawful things. That was from a American Muslim's site. He's 19. If you go to his channel, Ira is his name. So, I don't know his YouTube name. Well, he put out a challenge to for somebody to reveal a contradiction, a flaw, something in the Quran that is contrary to scientific understanding, or contrary to anything at all, he says. Oh, okay, well, I accept the challenge. Now, the first, most obvious place is the contradictions. But we all know there are two reasons that would never work. One is if you look at the Christians, I mean, they've got contradictions all up and down the Bible. I mean, we both are in agreement of that. And, I mean, of course, talk to them about their contradictions and they will ignore it. The second thing is, I don't know anything about Arabic, so I can't really look to the English translation. So if I, say something about it, well, it's just, well, I don't really know what the original meaning was. And of course, it's, so. And I've actually read and had some conversations with some Muslims, and that's always what it turned out to be, is that I don't understand. For instance, the word believer it's hard to get across what actually unbeliever means in English. It doesn't just translate the same. So then I was going to look at things, I suppose, like Lazarus maybe rising from the dead, maybe something Muhammad did. Actually, Muhammad didn't do any miracles, and if anybody could explain to me what was his reasoning for that. I suppose his miracle was the Quran, and about the only miracle about it is the Quranic challenge, which of course is unfalsifiable, but maybe we will get into that some other time later. But Jesus is in the Quran. And some Christians may not know this. They ought to look it up, because the Quran says a little bit about Jesus that they might not have known, that their Bible doesn't say. Let's see, Jesus had some strange things happening. For instance, he was in the crib. That doesn't give his age, but he was making fairly complicated sentences. And he was talking about all kind of stuff. So that was a little miracle. He, of course, raised people from the dead, healed the blind, cured leprosy. But one thing he did, which I thought was very curious, was he took some clay and he made a little figure of a bird out of it. I'd never heard, I've read the Bible. Never heard that. When was Jesus doing that? He was walking on water and, dancing around on a pogo stick. I never heard anything about this bird. So he made this little figure of a bird out of some clay. And he breathed into it. And it became a bird. I would like to propose that is impossible. The reasoning that I think that was in the Bible is because they thought that human skin and dirt was just as animated and not animated. They didn't realize that there were cells, and this is shown in the sperm being a drop and forming a clot and that kind of stuff. They didn't know about ovums and that kind of stuff. Certainly not about individual sperm. So anyway, they thought that skin was essentially dirt. So you made it out of dirt and blew it, and it's a bird. Actually, quite a heavy bird. I think that most people are going to say, well, it was the will of Allah, and Allah can do anything. If that's the case, then there is no contradiction ever possible. If the sun stood still in the sky, it's the will of Allah. If I don't have any fuel in my car and I drive it 300 miles, it's the will of Allah. But of course it contradicts science. So there are three possibilities. Either the Quran did not mean what I interpreted it to mean, that when Jesus formed the bird out of clay and it turned into a bird, maybe it wasn't a real bird, maybe it was simply another form, a little image of a bird. Since it doesn't actually say it was a live bird, I don't know what the original Quran said, but I imagine it was a real bird. It could have been a dream that Jesus had. Certainly it was Muhammad dreamed this because it wasn't written in the Bible, and how else he could have known about it. So an angel told Muhammad, and maybe it was a parable or something. And that explanation I will accept. Maybe that's just a parable. Jesus healing the blind and leprosy, and maybe that's just a parable too, since it was in the same verse, I think. And him talking in the crib and all. Science can be wrong. Maybe this bird, this lump of clay, can actually turn into a bird. Now, it's the argument used against evolution that it just, it would be entirely impossible, so improbable that it should be just considered impossible. And I agree with that. But if the Quran is correct, and Jesus actually did turn a lump of clay that looked like a bird, I don't know what kind of bird, an ugly bird, into a real bird, then science is wrong. This lump of clay right here could actually just turn into a bird by the will of Allah. I don't think that it actually will. I think it's just a lump of clay. But yes, I think it does contradict science. So science should be completely thrown out the door. No more science ever. If this thing right here can turn into a whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it even has to look like a bird. He could have just said bird, and the bird just pops out of the ground. But of course I think people thought differently back then. That's my explanation of why it said, turn into a bird with 3 feet. Who knows? Why didn't Jesus just do that with all the animals that died during the flood? Why did Moses even have to, Noah have to go through all of it? But yeah, there's the contradiction. One of the three has got to be true. Either it was a parable, science is correct, the Quran is correct. I don't see that that's a false dichotomy. It's got to be one of the three. So there you go. But of course, if this causes doubt, steer away from it. Everybody needs to go look at the guy's site, because that seems to be what it says. If it was to cause you doubt, it is unlawful. So there you go. I'm going to go take my bird. I'm going to put him in the cage. I have a cage upstairs. By the will of Allah, this will turn into a real bird. I'll have a bird next time y'all are here. It might take overnight. I might actually have to go to the pet store and give them this. Maybe they'll accept this. I can return my bird. He's pushing up daisies. He's an ex-parrot. He's got beautiful blue plumage.